got one more story for you. You will not hear about this in the corporate media. I don't think you're going to hear it in many independent media outlets, but I think it's a pretty big story that's getting no coverage. I would like to cover it in the field, so help me get back out there. There is an epidemic of missing Native American women. Native American women have been kidnapped. There have been a lot of Native American women murdered. And now some states are taking action. This is in Washington State. Let me read you the headline here. State House approves McCabe bill to help identify missing Native American women. Again, Washington State. A bill would help identify missing Native American women has unanimously passed the State House. House Bill 2951 would require the Washington State Patrol to work with tribal law enforcement and the Governor's Office of Indian Affairs to conduct a study to increase state resources for reporting and identifying missing Native American women throughout Washington State. Representative Gina McCabe, the bill's sponsor, said the recently released film, quote, film Wind River inspired her to dive deeper into the issue. Quote, there's virtually no record of exactly how many Indigenous women are currently missing, and I think we need to figure out the scope of this grim epidemic before we can appropriately determine a means to finding these women, McCabe said. Earth Feather Sovereign, a member of the Confederated Tribes of the Colville Reservation who worked with McCabe on drafting the bill, recently posted a Facebook message supporting the legislation which passed the House on Monday. Quote, missing and murdered Indigenous women are an epidemic in Washington State. Washington State is fourth in the U.S. as having the most MMIW, Sovereign wrote. Quote, there is currently no direct database to help identify or track our MMIW. We will hopefully see a better database with Bill HB-2951 in the next couple of years. So, although I didn't get to cover it much in Standing Rock, this is a major issue that's permeating reservations and Native American tribes, not just in Washington State, but all around the country. Women, being kidnapped, some of them by oil workers, some of them by other Native Americans. And I want to read you this other story written by an Indigenous woman that I've interviewed before. Her name is Christine Nobis. She was actually in charge of Little Creek Camp, which was in Iowa. I spent a week there for some healing last year. In the United States, there's an unaddressed crisis of epidemic proportions. Indigenous women, children, and men are assaulted, abused, murdered, and go missing at rates far above the national average. A National Institute of Justice study reported that 56% of Native American and Alaskan Native women have experienced sexual violence, and 90% of victims have experienced violence at the hands of a non-tribal member. The statistics around missing and murdered Indigenous women, however, are far harder to calculate. In 2016, the National Crime Information Center reported 5,712 missing Native American and Alaska Native women in the U.S. But experts say the actual number is higher as cases are underreported. In Canada, one report found that a little over 1,000 Native women were murdered between 1980 and 2012, but activists have identified over 4,000 missing and or murdered Indigenous women, according to the CBC. There's even a road in British Columbia called the Highway of Tears, where over 40 Indigenous women have gone missing or been found murdered in the vicinity since 1969. Though First Nation communities are working tirelessly to address the issue, it has rarely an impact on those that live with privilege and power. And on International Women's Day, their missing and murdered Indigenous women deserve your attention. The Lakota People's Law Project has stated that these statistics still underestimate the number of women affected by sexual violence because the infrastructure for women to report and handle incidents is underfunded. Some grassroots experts have testified that the rate of sexual violence is closer to 80 or 90% in some communities. And more than 80% of sex crimes on reservations are perpetrated by non-Native men, a continued act of violence that has its roots in an imperialist agenda. These high numbers are partially due to the fact that tribal courts have not had jurisdiction to prosecute non-tribal members for many crimes like sexual assault and rape, which has provided impunity to non-Native perpetrators. The Violence Against Women Act and its reauthorization in 2013 provided, quote, special domestic violence criminal jurisdiction to federally recognized tribes, according to the National Institute of Justice. Even so, federal authorities often decline to prosecute crimes that have been committed on Native American land, as Vice reported in 2015. This jurisdictional black hole has created a climate that many describe as open season on Native women on reservations. Many activists have been shedding light on the issue of increased violence in our territories due to man camps, or temporary villages that house workers on fossil fuel lines. Not only are these camps responsible for building infrastructure that often puts local environments and sacred areas at risk, but their presence is linked to direct harm of our people. And this isn't the first time I've heard about that. When I was at Standing Rock, I was told that there were man camps nearby. I drove by man camps of Dakota Access Pipeline workers. I'm not going to speculate because I don't have confirmation or proof of any of this, but I was told that Native American women were being assaulted by people from these man camps. I was told that some Native American women were literally being kidnapped and taken to those camps. I've never had the time to even investigate it. If only I had a company and the funds to investigate something like that. Native Americans, African Americans, they need all of our help. We need reporting and eyes and a microscope on them. Microphone on them. There are Native tribes all over the country that have poverty perpetrated against them, who have the Trump administration taking the little funds they have away. And we've had this epidemic of missing Native women, assaulted Native women for a long, long time. But who is going to expose it? And who is going to make it a story? Because, of course, the environmental genocide being perpetrated against these tribes is a major story. But so is their savage economic conditions being perpetrated against them. So is the savage racism and violence being perpetrated against them. And by the way, I mean, we could all come together for barbecues on the 4th of July, but at the end of the day, this country was born on killing Native Americans, on raping Native Americans.